Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today we are here live at the Kardec Radio Studios in Chantilly, Virginia, United States. And we're very happy and excited to share with you something that is of the essence for us. It's about eating healthy and talk about emotional eating. And to help us understand more about the topic, we have experts here with us. Friends of Kardec Radio from before, from Spiritista Centers here in Baltimore, in Virginia, our dear Brian Sandroff, the director and principal owner of Wellbeing GPS, and his wife, Randy Botnick, who is a clinical hypnotherapist at Wellbeing GPS in Maryland. They are here with us, and we are very honored by their presences and by the knowledge they're going to share with us. It's unbelievable what's happening nowadays, and we really need empowerment. So Kardec Radio is here to empower us to get to another level. And I'm here at the studio with Carlos Diaz, who is at the production since day one of Kardec Radio. He's always here with us, helping us go through the whole process. And I would like to share with you as well that at this very moment in Atlanta, Georgia, the 6th Atlanta Spiritist Conference is happening. It's a 2-day conference, and I think you still have time to register and to find them. You just need to go to spiritistconference.com and find out about their information. This September is going to be an exciting month because Divaldo Franco is going to be in Toronto, Canada. He's going to talk about psychology of gratitude at the University of Toronto. And if you want to know more information, just go to the website of the Toronto Spiritist Society.org and get to know more information. Also, Dr. Andre Moreira, who is a renowned spiritist and spiritist speaker and homeopathic physician in Brazil. He's going to be touring the United States and Canada in September. Some locations where he's going to be, we know the dates and the locations, some of them. Others, you need to send an email to us so we can find out more information. I know he's going to be in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I don't know specifically the dates, but I know he's going to be in the center here in Virginia, the Spiritist Society of Virginia, the SSVA, on September 18th, when he's going to be talking about self-healing and self-love. In Baltimore, he's going to be on Thursday, September the 19th, talking about healing. And on September 14th, he's going to be at the Toronto Spiritist Society. So it's something really not to miss. All the events are free of charge, as we usually do regarding Spiritist events. So these are things you don't want to miss, and hopefully you'll be in touch with the locations where you are so you can get a hold of it. Now, back to the topic. We're talking about emotional eating. Dear listener, you know, eating something that we have to do no matter what, no matter if you like it or not. Some people don't like eating, but these are few people. Majority of people enjoy eating. Of course, we have brain connections that really stimulate us because it's survival. God made it so well that we enjoy. There is pleasure related to it. The problem is if we don't know the limits. And nowadays, there's so much food available, at least for us in the United States and majority of countries around the world, though we still have hunger problems around the world in many locations, but there is abundance of food overall. What do? And the problem escalates to another level when we observe that we're eating without a real need, and it's emotionally related. We call it emotional eating. We have Randy Botnick, clinical hypnotherapist at a Wellbeing GPS, who is an expert in the field. She's going to be sharing with us why we do this, what this is, why, and is it something that has been happening all along in our humanity, or is it something more of the current times? And also, Brian Senderov, who is also an expert in the field, is going to be sharing with us the risks physiologically, psychologically, and socially, of course, as a consequence that we engage in when we're not eating healthy. There are so many things we do, we just think it's okay, and it's creating true harm to ourselves. Kardec himself, in the Spirit's book, he talked several questions about food, not only once. In the Spirit's book, which was published in 1857, so we see how much this is so up to date. At a time when people were not too concerned about these things, he asked many questions about it, and in a specific answer to one of his questions, the Illuminated Minds, this is answer to question 722 of the Spirit's book. They say, everything that humans can eat without harming their health is permitted. And they are mentioning about the spiritual laws of life. As long as it doesn't harm our health, we are up to date with the laws of life, with the flow of harmony. What if we are not doing that? What if we're harming our bodies? It's considered in Spiritism a transgression of the divine law. And this is not to be, sectarian or anything. It's very universal. There are laws in the universe. We need to comply. Otherwise, we're going to feel the effects. And in the Gospel According to Spiritism, we would share with you, there is a beautiful message that a spirit named Georges talks about caring for body and spirit. It's chapter 17, item 10. And why we're recommending this to you, dear listener? Because the first question this spirit friend asks is, for us to be spiritually evolved, should we simply disregard the body? And he develops the answer to this question in a beautiful way. And we would say we're going to talk about this here and much, much more. We just want to share with you the fact that many people think that being spiritual is all about the spirit. They forget about the body. And we in Spiritism, we understand that body is a blessing. It's like the true treasure that was given to us to live a whole life, a whole incarnation, reincarnation. And if we don't take care of it, something is going to go wrong. So to kickstart the program with great enthusiasm, empowering ourselves, telling you, dear listener, we can do it. It's just a matter of instructing ourselves well and really having a good strategy to engage into healthy eating. We would like to share with you a message from the book Child of God by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis through the medium Divaldo Franco. You can buy this book at the bookstore of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore at www.ssbaltimore.org. It's entitled Enthusiasm in You. And Kirsten DeMello kindly recorded this message for us.
From the book Child of God by Joanna de Angelis and Divaldo Franco. Enthusiasm in You. Enthusiasm is fundamental to life. Like the sun, it fertilizes everything. Without enthusiasm, the bright scenery around you fades away, and dark shadows blot out the light of knowledge. Enthusiasm stimulates and renovates. When enthusiasm wanes, your interest ebbs away, and you plunge into anxiety and bitterness. An enthusiastic person spreads optimism around, stirs up effort, and leads to activities that create progress and ensure success. On the other hand, anyone who loses his enthusiasm becomes gloomy and depressed. Life is packed with problems, and this must be so because they are part of the process of evolution. So, It is only normal for failure and tragedy to walk side by side with success, happiness, and joy. Always meet your problems with enthusiasm. Whatever happens to you, good or bad, move on with enthusiasm, leaving misfortune behind. To dwell too long on the mishaps of life will only vitalize them and create a mental atmosphere of pernicious effects. When anything unpleasant happens to you, do not avoid the opportunity to continue working with enthusiasm. Forget yesterday and wait for a happy tomorrow. It is stimulating to meet someone who walked past all difficulties, left sadness behind, and moved on. His example will stand as a light to illumine the pathways of others. Be you one such messenger of happiness just by keeping your enthusiasm.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, Andre Luiz emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want spirituous books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the spirit Mei Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelson Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of Spiritism. This year with the in-depth study of the book Genesis by Allan Kardec. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we're talking about emotional eating. Who has never eaten anything emotionally? You don't need the food, but you're eating it. Why? Why is this happening? And to understand more about this, because we need to take care of body and spirit. Kardec Radio is here to nourish your soul by empowering you to take care of your body as well. We have here with us Brian Sendroff, a long-standing friend of the Baltimore Spiritist community and also the Virginia Spiritist community, and his wife, Randy Botnick. Brian Sendroff, he has been leading the community in the greater Baltimore area regarding holistic care, and he's the director and principal owner of Wellbeing GPS. You can go to their website, www.wellbeinggps.com, and get to know about the beautiful programs they have. They have a store, etc. They can tell us more about everything that they offer there. And Randy Botnick, who is a clinical hypnotherapist at Wellbeing GPS. Thank you so much, Randy and Brian, for being with us today at Cardiac Radio.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
It's so exciting because this topic is so tricky, right? It's I remember when we were talking off the records here about we're not able to avoid food because we need it, and that's the tricky part of eating well, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. As you said, we were talking about before we got on the air, and many people recognize that it seems like part of the human condition is to try to use different substances or potentially use different substances to avoid feeling something that's uncomfortable to feel. And everybody is familiar with people who can become addicted to alcohol or nicotine or, all sorts of activities, shopping or whatever. And but what we don't recognize, I think, is that food is another way that it's another substance that we can use to avoid feeling something that's uncomfortable to feel. Sugar in particular, we sort of get a rush from the sugar, but because food is necessary, we can't be without food. It's not like we can just say, okay, well, we'll avoid that particular vice.
But, Brian, what is happening nowadays specifically? Because we feel there's so much abundance regarding food, especially in America or in the countries that are already more well-established. There is so much abundance that we're getting lost into what we should or should not eat, and there are true harms happening around when we, for example, about sodas, sugar, lots of carbs. Can you tell us more about what's happening and how this is harmful to us?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you bring up a couple of really good and important points. The first one is that for the vast majority of time that as a species we've been on this planet, food was not abundant. Our lives were centered around being able to survive, and that's not the case today. Obviously it hasn't been for a while now for most of us, and so this idea of survival of the fittest doesn't happen anymore. But genetically speaking, we developed in a way that made it so that when there was abundance of food, we would take advantage of that. We would build fat stores for times when there wouldn't be food available. And obviously that, for most of us doesn't happen anymore. And then the other point that you brought up was about what I call misinformation. I've been known to say that the number one killer in this country is not heart disease, it's not cancer. It really is misinformation. And so we get a lot of mixed messages about what's healthy for us and what isn't. And when we buy into those things, like you can watch television and you can see commercials from the Corn Growers Association telling us that high fructose corn syrup is natural and it's good for us, and it's not. It's probably the most deleterious food that we could eat, and it's probably the reason why we have such a problem with obesity, especially with our children today, is because of high fructose corn syrups that they get in sodas and many foods.
And so the main question is, how do we know we are eating healthy then?
Well, one of the ways is to look at your waistline, obviously. If you're carrying around too much weight, or maybe more importantly, too much fat. The truth is that from a health perspective, I really don't care what you weigh. I care what your percent body fat is. And so, you could be technically overweight but be carrying more muscle and not be unhealthy, or just the opposite, be much more healthy. But we can also look at other things. In health today, we have a tendency to accept decline in function as a normal part of aging, and I don't accept that at all. So when it comes to energy and sleep and mood and outlook. And then, of course, what it says on the scale and how your clothes fit, all of those things are indications of something not being right. And it's not that these diseases, I think you and I talked about this on the radio last time, last time we talked. It's not that these diseases happen to us. It's because they happen because of us. And so it really is our habits and our choices. And, a lot of the work that Randy and I do is to help people recognize the ramifications of their choices and then give them the power to make different choices if that's what they want to do.
So what is the main harm? For example, people nowadays think like drinking soda may be okay, especially if they drink diet soda. And can you tell us a little bit more about how harmful that can be?
Yeah, so it can be harmful in a couple different ways. So if you're drinking regular sodas, you're getting a tremendous amount of sugar, and you're getting that sugar in a form that the body does not use appropriately. And the body, again, because of those, tens of thousands of years that we went through not having food abundant, whenever we have excess sugar, the body's going to take it and store it for energy tomorrow. We have another word for that. It's called fat. The diet thing is bad in two ways, the diet sodas or the artificial sweeteners. Number one, all of the artificial sweeteners are neurotoxins. They're not good for you, and they affect nerve function and other function in the body. But number two is that they raise the bar on what sweet is. And so the thought was that when these things hit the market, that sugar consumption would go down. And actually, sugar consumption has gone up. Two reasons. One, false safety net. Someone says, okay, I'm having a diet soda, so I can still have a piece of pie for dessert. And then number two is it raises the bar on what sweet is. And then we're constantly craving sweeter and sweeter things because of how oversweet those artificial sweeteners are. And so the truth is, and the statistics show, that actually sugar consumption has gone up since the introduction of the artificial sweeteners. That started with saccharin back in the 70s, and then, of course, NutraSweet and all of that junk.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there is so much misconception happening, and that's, as you said, probably one of the reasons why, and especially when we talk about drinking juice. People say, oh, stop. For example, if you go to health food stores nowadays, you can find organic juice. And people think, oh, that's great, but there is a misleading message there because of the sugar, right?
Yep. Juice is a concentrated sugar. And so, one of the rules of thumb that I like to talk about is to ask yourself a simple question before you eat something. And that is, does this food exist this way in nature? If the answer is yes, it's likely healthier for you. And if the answer is no, it doesn't. So you don't see orange juice growing on a tree. You see oranges growing on a tree. And if someone were to have a glass of orange juice, that would be the sugar from probably 5 or 6 oranges without the fibers and the other things that would make it healthier for you. And by the way, you don't see bagels growing on a bush. You don't see pretzels growing on a tree anywhere either.
And we have a question here from a listener asking, so how can we sweeten anything without sugar or sweetener?
Well, okay. The question, the response that I usually have for that is, why do you want to sweeten something? My contention and my experience with a lot of my patients over many years is that once you get the sugars out of your diet for a period of time, and it can be as short as 3 or 4 days, number one, the sugar cravings go away, and number two, food starts tasting the way nature intended. And then when you eat something like a strawberry, it literally explodes in your mouth, and the sweetness that you get from that is all that you need. And so my usual response to that is, what do you have to sweeten anyways, because it's probably not healthy for you. If you do have to sweeten something, we like to use stevia. It's an herb that has a sweet tendency to it, but it doesn't affect blood sugar, and it doesn't cause an insulin response at all. And so if you have to sweeten something, using stevia would be the best option. You could use sugar alcohols, which taste sweet. They're carbohydrates, but they don't get absorbed, and so they're not effective carbohydrates. So things like xylitol or mannitol, and sometimes we'll use those ingredients in some of the shakes and bars that we recommend for people. But bottom line is, really shouldn't need to sweeten anything.
Oh, wow. That's interesting when you talk about going back to the root of our own nature and realizing the foods that are in the best possible, in the closest way to nature itself. So that's when people talk about eating also organic. And can you tell us just a little bit more about how eating healthy encompasses also how eating organic is part of eating healthy, please?
Yeah, so, obviously the things that we do to food that involve chemicals and numbers and colors are not good for us. They're not food, and they have effects in our body. And so when we, for instance, when we absorb colorings or flavorings or pesticides, they are estrogen-like compounds, and our body thinks it's an estrogen, but it can't get rid of it like it can normal estrogen. And so those things can have effects on the body, and so they can affect hormonal balance, they can affect, mood and sleep, they can affect attention and hyperactivity in our children. So the whole organic thing is a bit of a quandary to me, because I don't think organic means what it used to. When the big agro-businesses decided that they wanted to get into organics because they saw a market for it and people starting to demand it, the first thing they did is go to the legislature and change the rules of what organic means. And so they sort of dumbed that down. To me, personally, I think it's even more important to eat locally. I'm a big fan of trying to be a locavore, and sort of the definition of a locavore means eating foods that have been grown within 100 miles of where you are. And so I think that has a bigger effect on us health-wise, and it has a bigger effect on the health of the world when we're not transporting foods from all over the place. The average meal that an American eats has traveled 2,000 miles to get to that plate. So even if you're eating something unhealthy, like a 99-cent hamburger from McDonald's, the wheat grown in another country sometimes, and then made into a bread and then transported across the country, has a huge ecological footprint that goes way beyond that 99 cents. And so, from that perspective, if someone said to me, "Hey, should I eat local or should I eat organic?" it'd be better to eat local. And when you do eat local, you have the opportunity to get to know the people that are actually growing the food for you. And even if it's not certified organic, you can find out what their practices are, and then you can make your choices about which one of those local people you want to support or eat from.
So Brian, when we go to the website Wellbeing GPS, we know there is a store, and you talk much about supplements and like greens. There is this green first, etc. We know that no matter how hard we try nowadays to eat healthy, even in the way you said, we need supplements as well. Is that a correct concept, that we need some form of supplements? And if that is true, what would be the best supplements that we shouldn't disregard in our daily lives?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really important question, Vanessa. So the sad part is that I do believe that it is very hard to get all of our nutritional needs met from our food these days, because of the way the food is grown, and because of many things not ripening on the vine. The nutritional value isn't as good, and then the things that we do when we cook the foods. And so I do believe that it has become necessary to supplement. There on the website, I've done a webinar that's called The Essential Six, and this is really one of my pet projects. These are, from a scientific perspective, the 6 either supplements or systems in the body that need to get supported for us to get our genes to express themselves in the most positive way, meaning that it gives us the best chance of avoiding the kinds of diseases that we have weaknesses towards, meaning, the kinds of things that our parents and our grandparents had. And so vitamin D is very important. Healthy fats like fish oil, very important. Anti-inflammatory herbs, some help with digestion, probiotics, or good bacteria that are in the gut, and some adrenal support to help deal with the stresses of life. Those are the essential 6. And so and happy to do a show with you about that in particular if you want. But for now, I would just refer people to the website. It's wellbeinggps.com, and just click on the webinar section, and then you can see the archive of all the old webinars. It's about 45 minutes. It goes with a nice PowerPoint presentation. It's really good information.
That's wonderful. There is so much information in the website that it's really amazing. But before we go to the break, there is like a very hot topic that people want us to ask you. It's about diabetes, because it's being like the monster that is haunting people all over the place. And I know you have a webinar about insulin levels as well. Can you give us some tips about how to keep it like, preventative speaking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, number one, the first thing to recognize is that every one of us is pre-diabetic. Every one of us has the potential to be diabetic, and that goes back to our very genetic roots, because our body will not waste sugar because we came from a time when food was not always available. That's really the bottom line of it. So you have to change your diet. And this is where the misinformation comes in, because if you go to the American Diabetic Association or the American Heart Association, they will tell you to be on a low-fat diet, and you should not be on a low-fat diet. What you need to be on is on a low-sugar diet. You have to be on a controlled carbohydrate diet. And so, American Diabetic Association will tell you that whole grains are good for you, and I'm telling you they're poison for any diabetic or anybody that's challenged with sugar. And so the quick answer is you have to get the processed and refined carbs out of your diet. Obviously, you can't have cakes and candies and donuts, but bread, pasta, cereal, anything that's grain-based is poison and is making the sugar problem worse. And so I've got people who are diabetic, who are on medicine, sometimes even insulin, when they get on this sort of diet where the basis of their diets are, animal proteins, vegetables, some limited fruits, nuts and seeds, legumes, that kind of thing, that their sugar gets under control really quickly. They lose weight, they lose fat, they gain energy, they sleep better, and they like their husbands and wives better, and all that stuff.
That's the best part of it.
Yeah.
That's the best part. So, okay, we're very excited, very enthusiastic about the topic, because it really transforms our lives. And I know Randy is here with us. And now, how do we, from eating healthy, understand emotional eating? Before we go to the break, Randy, would you kindly tease us about the definition? What is emotional eating?
Well, emotional eating is any time that we use food to satisfy an emotional craving or to numb an emotional feeling. And so it's an addiction to food as a way to self-medicate.
Oh, wow. That's intriguing. So we're going to give a break, make everybody think and reflect about it, and we are going to come back to understand more about how these emotional cravings appear, okay? All right. So
we will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light, Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on a previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. They will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luis Sergio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are learning a lot about eating healthy because this is part of taking care of our physical body. Without the physical body, there is no reincarnation or reincarnation. And often people get misled about, oh, I'm so spiritual, I only take care of my spirit and I eat donuts every day. It may be funny, but it's sad because we're destroying our physical body. In the book, No Solar, by the spirit doctor André Luiz, through the loving and mediumistic hands of Chico Xavier, we learn a new concept. When we are not eating healthy, we are killing ourselves. The reality is that Spiritism teaches us that it is indirect suicide because we are not killing ourselves at once, but little by little. We don't like to hear these things, but the reality is we have to, otherwise there is action and reaction, consequences for each choice we make in our lives. And that's why Kardec Radio is also dedicating this whole program to understanding a very important topic, emotional eating. On the first part of the interview, Brian Sendra from Wellbeing GPS kindly led us into the understanding of eating healthy. Now, Randy Botnick with Brian are going to help us understand about eating emotionally or emotional eating. So, Randy, you brought us the definition of emotional eating, which encompasses like emotional cravings. But what is an emotional craving? How do we develop it?
So that's a very good question. An emotional craving is when we feel something inside of us that feels like it's empty and needs to be filled, or when it feels like a pain that needs to be quelled. And this can come from so many different places. This can come from past lives. This can come from trauma and pain in our childhood. But that we feel it throughout the entire body, and we're looking for a way to make ourselves feel better, just to nurture ourselves and numb this pain.
Okay, so here you brought us a lot of elements regarding the fact that we can bring this pain from previous lives, and it can trigger some emotional needs that will also be connecting to our eating habits. So how do you is it so it's not something new that has been happening to current human society, so it probably has happened all along in humanity. Am I right?
It's hard to know the answer to that question. I don't know whether people in the Middle Ages used food in exactly the same way, because it wasn't as available as it is today. And what's even more available today, as Brian was talking about, are the sugars and the carbohydrates and the processed foods. And those tend to feed us on that level and do some comfort to the body as we're eating those sugars. And so, as I said, I'm not sure that was so available in the distant past, but certainly since the 1940s or 50s, as it has been more and more available, and obesity has consistently risen since then, we can see that people are using food more and more, not just to live, but to take care of themselves emotionally.
Wow. That's interesting. And physiologically, we can almost understand that the fact that the connection with the emotional parts of our brains, the limbic system, we know by nature as we eat, we feel pleasure, which is a good thing, as the spirits say to Kardec in the Spirit's book. It's a way to stimulate our survival. It's saying, like, this is good for you, you need it, there is some pleasure and enjoyment. Now, when we go to the fact that we exacerbate this pleasure, it's probably an exacerbation of this pleasure in which it becomes like comfortable. So in the case when you go to the clinic, can you give us an example, like, so the listener can, relate to it, like what an emotional eating could be if you have any example for us?
Absolutely. I have a few examples. Certainly, as I said before, anyone who's suffered from trauma in childhood will often feel the need to physically protect themselves, and they do that by putting on weight. Not every single person, but many people come in and they have this layer of weight around them, this layer of fat that helps them feel that people won't approach them, that if it's a woman, that men won't approach them, that they're a little buffered from the rest of society. So that's one way. Other ways are that some people are very uncomfortable in their bodies, and certainly lately over the last few years, as the vibration on the planet has risen, many people feel this level of anxiety because we're not as grounded into our bodies as we used to be, because the vibration has shifted so much and the body is still catching up. And if we haven't done our emotional work and cleared our emotional bodies, then our physical bodies are even more uncomfortable on the planet. And people will eat in order to feel like they're more in their bodies and to feel more settled and grounded than they do just naturally.
So, for example, anxiety. Anxiety is a main trigger, right, for eating. Often people feel anxious and they start eating more and more and more and more.
Absolutely. Anxiety is a level of fear. And so they go for something that's going to feel comforting. And food, as we said before, is so readily available and so in front of us. And we can purchase donuts and cookies and candy and all soda whenever we want to. And so people start craving those foods. And the more they eat them, the more they crave them. So this is learned behavior on some level. We're certainly looking for something comforting, and there are different ways people comfort. Some people only comfort through carbohydrates like pasta and fatty foods like cheese and things like that, but other people go for the sugar. Either way, you're taking in many more calories than your body can use, and as Brian says, it's stored as fat because your body can't manage all of that sugar.
Oh, wow. So now about the many lives experiences. As we know, these experiences are stored in our spiritual body, in our mind, and then they are still having an effect on us, including our eating habits. Do you have any specific case you can share with us in which that would be the case, in which a previous life experience would be pushing us to emotional eating?
Actually, I worked with a woman a week or two ago who had that very same issue. In a past life, what I noticed for her was that she was a gluttonous king, very greedy, very gluttonous, and the king would sit in a chair and just be fed all the time and had very little motivation and very little need to take care of the kingdom that he ruled. In this lifetime, this woman is also dealing with a lack of motivation for taking care of her physical body and overeating all the time and not understanding why she can't motivate to change her eating habits and to do what she consciously knows she should be doing and the foods that she shouldn't be eating. And she's finding this incredible resistance within her. And we isolated a belief system which was sort of a self-entitlement and a feeling that she should be able to do whatever she wanted. And this sort of childlike behavior pattern within her. And it was completely linked to this past lifetime. Very interesting.
Wow, that's very interesting. And you could tell that sometimes people, nowadays, if we think of many lives, often we think about previous lives, etc. But in that being the case, that we're living many lives, there are things that we're doing today that are setting off like patterns for next lives as well. And you could tell things that we may be doing today that we will, for sure, create some emotional cravings and probably emotional issues and emotional eating in future lives. And people often don't even think about that, do they?
Very good point. Very good point. Because we can't even isolate this lifetime from any past lifetime, in exactly the same way we can't isolate it from future lifetimes. And in fact, really, they're all concurrent anyway, on some level. And so, what we want to know is that we don't suffer challenges in any lifetime just as a means of suffering. That's not what it's about. Challenges in every lifetime are for the soul to grow and expand and constantly get to a place where we remember who we really are. And that's what the challenges are for. They're not to make us suffer needlessly for lifetimes and lifetimes. So the most awake people, the best way to be is that we look at all of our challenges in this lifetime and we face them head on and we say, okay, I want to heal this issue in my life. I want to move through this in a better way. And as we do that, we do exactly what you were saying. We break the conditions that are going to lead to poor behavior in future lifetimes. And we break the chains of the past, we break the chains of the future.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It is amazing, and it challenges us to really stay very present to how we feel. The other piece of this, you were talking so beautifully at the beginning about the need to take care of our body, this vehicle that we use to incarnate and to have this lifetime. And the body is the best way, we see what's happening in the body is the best way to notice what's happening in our energy system and our emotional system. Because the body is the external expression of all of that.
Wow. Yeah, it's like a thermometer, right?
That's right.
Sometimes. It could be a thermometer too to tell us, like, oh, there is fever. We need to take care. There is some infection around. So
that's right. Exactly. It works on that level, and it works on the emotional level.
That's interesting. When Brian talks to us about eating all those things, it reminds me of, as we're talking also about past and future, when we're creating a pattern here for us and a lifestyle, it's a choice that we're making, conditionings we're creating for the soul in itself that will certainly be present in a future life. So when I see many people indulging nowadays carelessly, I feel that they are not fully aware also, not only about this present life, but about the seeds they are planting for the future, things that often people don't even, it doesn't even cross the people's minds, that we are every day planting seeds for future lives, including our eating habits. I see people nowadays, Brian and Randy, that are very good at controlling their eating, and I wonder when they condition themselves, because sometimes they are in a family that is very indulgent regarding eating. They indulge a lot, but there are some people in those families that are very good at staying fit, taking care of themselves, being in control of their diet, and I wonder where they got that from. So I hypothesize that probably they created that healthy habit also in a previous life. So it's a possibility,
yep.
Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Or that they're more adept at staying connected to their bodies. And certainly on just sort of a mental level, everybody comes in with different priorities and different ways of feeling good in their lives. And so for some people, staying healthy and in balance helps them feel really good, and they're connected to that feeling. For other people, they're not at all. They're just not connected to that. And we have to remember that the subconscious mind overrides so much in the conscious mind, which is why we look at past lives, which is why we look at regression of our own lifetime, and so we can see what we're holding on to and what our subconscious mind is trained to believe and remember, and then how we're acting that out in the present. And so many people aren't awake to that at all. I mean, so many people aren't awake to that. They don't even understand that concept.
So before we go to the break, Randy, can you tell us more about what is this subconscious, how it gets like loaded with information and how it plays a role? I mean, too many questions probably, but just tell us a little bit about the subconscious. We know we have it, but what is it?
Okay. So the mind has two different, you think of the mind like it has two stereo speakers. And one stereo speaker is the conscious mind. And that is having all of the thoughts and analysis and questions, and it stays fairly present to what's going on, and it's playing the loudest. And then way in the background is the second speaker, and that's the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind holds all of our past experiences, our memories, our feelings, patterns, habits, dreams, and it's very, very quiet in the background. The problem is, or the challenge is that the subconscious mind playing so quietly actually runs 90% of our lives, and 10% is run by the conscious mind. And so we are sort of programmed to take all of our experiences and keep reliving them in different ways. Whenever we think of something, the subconscious mind summons up all the history associated with it, whether it's positive or negative, and then just keeps repeating it over and over, repeating the same feelings about different situations, saying, oh, that feels just like what happened to me when I was 5. It must be the same thing, even though what happens to you as an adult is not the same thing as what happens to you when you were 5. But the subconscious mind can't discern time and can't discern learning in that way. And so unless we go and work directly with the subconscious mind, we don't change those behaviors. And that's the key to hypnotherapy. That's just the key to hypnotherapy.
All right. Wow. That's powerful. We're going to give a break, Randy and Brian. When we come back, we want to talk about how we can prevent it if possible, how we can prevent emotional eating, and if that's already happening, how we can treat it, especially through hypnotherapy, okay?
Great. Thank
you. We will
you.
return to our program after these messages.
Brian?
Yeah.
Books of Andre Luis. Through the hands of the most prolific medium of all times, Chico Javier, the spirit doctor Andre Luis wrote a series of books that unveil the mechanisms of life and life after life. From the best-selling novel No Solar, Our Home, to And Life Goes On, the reader will find illumination for a fulfilled life on Earth as well as immortal happiness. Check the many titles available at the international distributor, EDI CEI of America. Their website is www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio. Traveling to another country? Immigrating elsewhere? Prepare yourself by reading the book Among Brothers of Other Lands, in which several loving and wise spirits wrote through the hands of Chico Xavier and Waldo Vieira, telling all of us the tips and hints of a successful transition to a new land. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Do you want Spiritist books for your children? At Odyssey of America, you'll find a collection of them, from the best-selling book Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei Mei, through Chico Xavier, brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adailson Salles on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.odysseyofamerica.com.
And now we return to our program.
We are talking about emotional eating, and now we are learning everything is in our subconscious. And it's not simple. If you are there and you still have a question, some listeners have already sent us questions, but if you want to ask some questions to Randy and Brian from Wellbeing GPS, please write to us here at the chat room of Kardec Radio, or to our email at kardecradio@gmail.com, or call us at 858-769-4705. You still have time, as we are in the last part of our program today, and they are going to lead us into understanding now how possibly we can prevent this emotional eating. I mean, Brian, is there a way that we can prevent it?
Yeah, it's a really good and important question, Vanessa, and it's a tough one because I think that the key to prevention is awareness, as Randy was talking about, understanding the motivation behind eating. And so there are many people who find themselves eating things that they would choose not to if they could consciously do that. And so what I normally ask people to do before they eat something that they know they're not supposed to is to ask themselves a simple question: am I hungry? Or is this trying to feed some other need, like an emotional need? And so it really comes down to just being aware of putting food in our mouths and what's the purpose behind it. Am I eating because I'm hungry and I actually need something, or am I eating because I'm sad or I'm angry or I'm happy, or because everyone else around me is eating even though I'm not hungry? You know, those sorts of things. So the prevention really comes to be about awareness. The treatment that's a completely different story. And I know Randi doesn't toot her own horn as well as I'd like to see her do it. She made a really great tool, which is an emotional eating self-hypnosis CD, and I'll let Randi tell you about that a little bit if that's okay.
Okay.
So this is an hypnosis CD. So it begins with a guided relaxation, and then offers the listener a number of different suggestions around feeling more at peace within themselves, choosing new ways to handle emotional upset. There's suggestions around just not feeling as hungry and not turning to food as readily. And the whole thing is about 20 minutes long, and so it's something that it's being sold on the wellbeinggps.com website, and anybody can purchase it there who would like. And it's to be listened to when you are able to be in a place where you can lay down and close your eyes and just take 20 minutes to yourself. And the idea is to listen to it every single day for about a month, because it takes about 28 days to change a habit permanently. And so if you can get yourself to listen to this every single day, you can really turn this around for yourself.
That's interesting. So you're talking about training the mind. As we change our minds, our thoughts, and it's going to help us foster new feelings, and it's going to make us more fully aware of ourselves and our connection with our physical body. Is that and you're talking about changing the message in the subconscious? Is that correct? Or yeah?
That's right. And that's what I want to say. It's not only changing the thoughts. The thoughts are there and are bringing it into the conscious is just one piece of the puzzle, because so many people come to me and say, I know what I'm supposed to do, I just can't get myself to do it. Well, that's because the rules, so to speak, are sitting in the subconscious mind, and the hypnosis CD accesses the subconscious through a deep relaxation. When the conscious mind is relaxed and kind of drifting off, we're able to access the subconscious mind. And that's where all of these patterns and habits around how we take care of ourselves are kept. And so the CD, the suggestions actually feed right into the subconscious mind.
Okay, so if they go to Wellbeing GPS, there is a hypnosis program for emotional eating. The CD guaranteed 30 days, every day it shifts. Now, I know this is very scientific because neuroscience has been proving that there are many experiments showing if people really commit to a certain amount of days to doing a specific new habit, they will condition themselves. Even Allan Kardec talks about that in Question and Answer 685 of the Spirit's book, when he says the true education is the acquisition of new habits, and the new habits we're talking about here are the way we feel and think about food and our relationship with food. But you're talking about hypnosis, Randi, and some people don't know what hypnosis is. They think it's just somebody coming and tell you, look at my hand, right and left, so I'm going to hypnotize you. And that's not exactly what we're talking about, right?
No, we're right, exactly. Stage hypnosis and doing things that are funny for people is quite different than clinical hypnotherapy, which is what I practice. And so the clinical hypnotherapy is really about helping someone move into a deep state of relaxation, as I said. There's sort of this line that needs to be crossed between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. It's called the critical mind. And we need to cross over the critical mind, which is the part of the mind that says, I don't know if I trust you to tell me to do something different. And the way we cross over that is by helping a person get into a deep relaxation. It's very simple. And that's kind of the neatest thing about hypnosis and hypnotherapy is that I can't make anyone do anything. The hypnosis actually comes from them. They allow themselves, a client will allow him or herself to move into this deep, relaxed state. And once that person allows that to happen, then the subconscious mind is open to suggestions. So it's a very, very safe experience because, again, I could never make anybody do something they're not ready to do. I can't make somebody quit smoking if they're not truly ready to quit. I could never have someone, make someone, do anything criminal, anything like that. I mean, I don't have that kind of power. What I do have is the knowledge of how to go about helping someone else achieve their goals.
And that's beautiful. We really need that type of partnership. So can we tell the listener that if they're really willing to shift their emotional eating, they can really do it by either doing the CD exercises or finding somebody like you, like a hypnotherapist that can help us really gain new thought and feeling patterns about how they're engaging into their food habits?
Absolutely. And the key is for each person to understand why they're being drawn to overeating, and that there's no one-size-fits-all for any of this, but everybody needs to have an understanding of their own subconscious messages, belief systems, memories, all of that.
So self-knowledge is a big part of the changing process here.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it's key.
So people really need to be willing to understand more about themselves. It's not like a miraculous pill that you go there, boom, I don't need to think about anything. I just click here and boom, I don't need to eat those things anymore. We really need to be awake, as you said earlier, right? Or awaken.
Well, absolutely awaken, exactly, because the soul doesn't grow through automatic, me getting somebody to heal. That doesn't create soul growth for the client. And the whole idea about being alive on this planet is soul growth, is an expansion and reawakening of the soul. I can't do that for somebody else. No one can do that for you.
So the vital and crucial point here of this program, I think, reconnect with what you and Brian said at the very beginning, is about the fact that that eating is a vital part of our lives when we incarnate. It's so vital that we can't help it but to really learn how to eat healthy. What would be your final comments, Brian and Randy, so the listener can feel ever more empowered about that?
I guess for me it comes down to a couple things. It's that idea of awareness, of that understanding that food can be something that we use to avoid feeling something that feels uncomfortable. And so being willing to go into that uncomfortable feeling, understand it, know it, and move through it is always going to be always going to help us move forward much better than avoiding having that feeling. The other thing I'll say about the CD that you mentioned, Vanessa, and again, people can just go to the website, is that I know that there are people that are listening to these words right now who are suffering. Some of those people are aware, some of them are not. The CD can be bought and you can have it sent to you, or you can download it. It's actually less expensive to download it. So the truth is, somebody listening to the show right now can go to sleep tonight listening to the Self-Hypnosis CD and start to change their lives tomorrow.
Okay, that's great. That's very empowering to have hands-on tool to really lead us into that exercise. So wellbeinggps.com, go to the emotional eating and then you're going to find the links to the CD, either the compact disc or the MP3, right?
Yep.
Yes.
You got that perfect.
Great. Wonderful. Randy, anything else you'd like to add regarding this empowerment, regarding healthy eating and avoiding emotional eating?
The one thing that I want to say is that a quick and easy way to identify if you're using food as a way to self-medicate in any way is to notice if you have any conflict around food. If you, even on a very, whether it's an obvious level or a subtle level, to check in and say, do I think about this way too much? Am I constantly criticizing myself for what I'm eating? Do I know I shouldn't have eaten that bag of candy? Did I recognize while I was eating that bag of candy that I shouldn't have, or am I feeling guilty about it later? Anything like that is conflict. It's the conflict between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and that is a very quick and easy way to tell if you're abusing food. And so if you notice that conflict within yourself, then that's the first place to start, with knowing that you need some healing around this.
Okay, that's beautiful. It's very hopeful too. So we'd like to thank you, Brian and Randy, for being with us here for this whole hour, sharing so much with us and helping us find a better way of eating healthy and living better with ourselves and our relationships. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
and we
you.
hope to have you here next time in the near future, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. So, dear listener, I know you enjoyed it because we did too. And remember, you can always share this program with other listeners, because every Kardec Radio's listener program is on demand, either at our website, kardecradio.com, or at Kardec Radio page in Blog Talk Radio website, or at iTunes. It's so easy, at iTunes.com. We were taking calls until now, but we just finished the program, and we are now going to lead this opportunity into the final part of it, in which we bring to you the beautiful saying of the Spirit Georges, a protector spirit, whom in 1863 wrote a beautiful message in the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 17, item 10. So love your soul, but care also for your body, the soul's instrument. Being heedless of the needs that are indicated by nature itself means to be heedless of the law of God. Do not punish your body for the wrongs that your free will has made it commit, and for which the body is no more responsible than a badly ridden horse for any accident it might cause. Dear listener, this is a beautiful message that was brought in the Gospel According to Spiritism to wrap up this program, in which we are understanding a little bit more about ourselves. And if you want more empowerment, there is a prayer in the Spirit's book that talks about resisting temptations. And that's also good, because prayer, as Joana de Angelis says in the book Happy Life, she says, do not underestimate the value and power of prayer. The body needs enough food to maintain itself, so does the spirit, which vitalizes matter. Prayer is a high-quality fuel for your harmony. Get into the habit of praying. Make it natural, part of your daily routine, and you will experience the benefit. Do not deny yourself the bread of life, sincere and fervent prayer. And that's why right now we're going to invite you to join us into a prayer that can be quite handy when we're dealing with emotional eating, because we're talking about temptations, things that really we are badly used, and we have a hard time resisting. And in this book, we have prayer for resisting to temptations. Dear listener, join us with your thoughts and your heart. This prayer is in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 28, items 20 to 21. Let us feel the loving embrace of our loving Father, Mother God, the source of all good in the universe. As we breathe in, we feel the providence of God caring for us. As we breathe out, we let go of difficulties, resistances, conflicts. At each breath, we deepen our connection with the source of life, God. Almighty God, do not let us yield to temptation that may lead us into error. Please, benevolent spirits, guardian angels, watch over us. Take this bad thought from me, this tendency to eating emotionally, and give us the strength to resist to these suggestions. And if I do yield to this habit, I know I will deserve to expiate this wrong in this life or another, for I am free to make a choice. Please empower us into greater understanding about ourselves, life, and our beautiful connection with you. May all those who are experiencing the difficulties of emotional eating feel embraced by your providence, empowering themselves to a new habit of eating healthy, caring for our bodies, for their bodies, so they can also keep taking care of their souls. And so be it. Dear listener, the program today was very empowering. Now, next week, it's a very challenging topic because we are going to talk about something that is really of the essence and we barely talk about. We often talk about being charitable and kind and compassionate to others. But what about compassion to criminals? Being charitable to them. Is that a possibility, or should they simply suffer and we should make them suffer? We don't think so at Kardec Radio. Actually, we want to dedicate a whole program next week to understanding how we can reach out to those that have committed crimes. Because the veracity of the story is, if in this life we're no criminal, who guarantees in a previous life we haven't been there? So here we have at Kardec Radio a special program in the upcoming Saturday about charity, compassion towards criminals. And we are going to be talking to Brandon Cosby, who is the director of OAR. The OAR of Fairfax County in Virginia has a beautiful program, and there are only 9 programs of such nature in the United States of America, telling us how we can break the cycle of crime and reach out to those who stumbled in our society at large. Beautiful stories about charity, things that we shouldn't lose sight and actually really pay more attention. He is going to give us great statistics, and you'll be very surprised, I assure you that, about the numbers that he's going to give to us and how you can make it a better society by also reaching out to those who have stumbled in crimes. For now, if you have questions or suggestions, we are very welcoming, and you can send an email at kardecradio.com. Just go to our contact form. It comes directly to us. And if you want a T-shirt at Kardec Radio, we still have some. Just write to us with your address, and we'll, free of charge, send one to you. Why? You may be asking why. Well, because we love Kardec Radio. We love the Spiritist teachings. We want to share with you and want the world to know, because Kardec Radio is now in much more than 61 countries around the world, and is just expanding as we speak. By the way, don't forget, tomorrow, Spiritist Awareness at 8 p.m., and then the following week on Wednesday, God at Home with Francisca Kranz and Mackenzie Mello. On Thursday, beautiful Spiritist Talks just for you. We hope you enjoy your day, and remember the message at the very beginning: be enthusiastic, because life is never ending. Enjoy your week. Many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.